Daniel couldn't understand what Auntie Sarah was doing. The activities she introduced were nothing like the games he played with his school friends. Daniel was just 10 years old, a primary schooler who loved soccer and reading adventure books. Most afternoons, when he returned from school, the house was silent. His parents, Mr. and Mrs. Adesina, managed a grocery store in town. They worked tirelessly to ensure Daniel had the best they could provide. The school bus dropped Daniel home by 3 p.m., but his parents wouldn't return until 6 p.m. "I hate being by myself every day," Daniel told them one evening. "We're sorry, Daniel," his mom said sympathetically. "It's only a few hours, but we need to work hard to afford your school fees and other expenses." Daniel nodded in understanding, but he often wished his parents had more time for him. Seeing his frustration, Mrs. Adesina proposed a solution. "Daniel," she said one evening, "our neighbor, Auntie Sarah, has agreed to watch you until we get home. She's very kind, and you'll be safe with her." Auntie Sarah was a woman in her late 20s who lived in the same compound. She was cheerful and generous, often giving Daniel sweets whenever she saw him. Trusting her, Daniel's parents decided it was a good arrangement. The next day, Daniel started spending his afternoons at Auntie Sarah's place. Her home was cozy and tidy, and she always greeted him warmly. "Come in, Daniel. You must be hungry. How was school today?" she would ask, handing him a plate of food. Though shy at first, Daniel grew comfortable with Auntie Sarah's kindness and jokes. She let him watch cartoons and even gifted him a shiny new football one day. Before we dive deeper into this heartfelt story, comment below where are you watching this video from, and subscribe to the channel, and 10 lucky subscribers will get a chance to win exclusive African folktale book. Now let's continue with Daniel's journey and see how his life unfolds. "This is for you, Daniel. You're like a younger brother to me," she said. "Thank you, Auntie Sarah," Daniel replied with a big smile. But as time went on, things started to feel strange. One afternoon, after he finished his schoolwork, Auntie Sarah sat beside him. "Daniel," she said gently, "I want us to play a special game. It's just for the two of us. You can't tell anyone, okay?" Daniel felt puzzled, but didn't question her. She seemed so friendly. However, as the game progressed, he became uncomfortable. Auntie Sarah asked him to touch here and there, and do things that didn't make sense. Her instructions confused and scared him, and though he didn't like what was happening, he didn't know how to say no. "Don't worry, you'll enjoy this soon," she reassured him with a smile. She made Daniel explore her body and gave him instructions that left him feeling upset and uneasy. Afterward, she insisted it was their secret and that he shouldn't tell his parents. The first few times it happened, Daniel tried to convince himself it wasn't a big deal. Auntie Sarah was kind to him, wasn't she? She made him laugh, fed him, and gave him presents. But as the days turned into weeks, the dread in his stomach grew stronger every time the school bus dropped him off. Both sat on the sofa. Auntie Sarah gave him snacks to eat, and while he was eating, she went inside the bedroom. When she came back, she was only wearing innerwear. She came and sat beside him, asking him to do all kinds of things. "Daniel, I want you inside me," she said, and starting making strange noises. Daniel felt very scared and uncomfortable. When Daniel was thinking how to escape the situation, then they heard a car sound outside, and suddenly Auntie Sarah got up and got dressed. Daniel sighed in relief. One day, he found himself walking slower than usual as he approached Auntie Sarah's house. He lingered by the gate, wishing he could turn back and run home, but he knew his parents wouldn't be there. When Auntie Sarah opened the door and smiled, Daniel forced himself to smile back, even though he wanted to cry. That night, Daniel lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling. His thoughts were tangled, and he felt a heaviness in his chest that wouldn't go away. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. The next morning, he struggled to focus in class. His teacher, Miss Adebayo, noticed his distraction and asked if he was feeling okay. Daniel nodded quickly, not wanting to draw attention to himself. A few nights later, Daniel wet the bed. He hadn't done that since he was much younger, and the embarrassment hit him like a wave. He quickly changed the sheets before his parents noticed. But when it happened again the following night, he couldn't hide it anymore. His mom found the wet sheets and looked at him with concern. "Daniel, are you feeling unwell?" she asked gently. "I'm fine, Mommy," Daniel replied quickly, avoiding her gaze. But he wasn't fine. The bedwetting continued, and so did the uneasy visits to Auntie Sarah's house. One evening, he mustered the courage to approach his mom while she was cooking dinner. "Mom, I need to talk to you about Auntie Sarah," he began. But his mom, tired from a long day, interrupted him. "Not now, Daniel. I'm very busy. We'll talk later, okay?" Daniel's heart sank. He walked back to his room, feeling more alone than ever. He stared at the soccer ball Auntie Sarah had given him, but even that didn't bring him any joy. He wanted to cry, but held back the tears. The next day at school, during lunch break, Miss Adebayo found Daniel sitting by himself. She sat down beside him and spoke softly. "Daniel, you seem very quiet lately. Is something bothering you?" Daniel hesitated. He looked around to make sure no one was listening, then whispered, "Auntie Sarah does things I don't like. I'm scared." Miss Adebayo's expression changed. She placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Thank you for telling me, Daniel. You're very brave. I'm going to help you, okay?" True to her word, Miss Adebayo reported the matter to the school counselor, who immediately contacted Child Protection Services. That evening, a social worker visited Daniel's home. They explained to his parents what Daniel had shared. Mr. and Mrs. Adesina were horrified and heartbroken. They hugged Daniel tightly, apologizing for not realizing something was wrong. "We're so sorry, Daniel. We should have been there for you," his mom said, tears streaming down her face. Auntie Sarah was reported to the authorities and faced legal consequences for her actions. Meanwhile, Daniel's parents made significant changes to their routine. They rearranged their work schedules so that one of them could be home when Daniel returned from school. They also enrolled him in therapy to help him process what had happened. At first, therapy was difficult for Daniel. Talking about his feelings and experiences made him feel vulnerable, but his therapist was patient and kind. Over time, Daniel began to open up. He learned that what had happened wasn't his fault, and that it was okay to feel scared or sad. His therapist also taught him about boundaries and how to assert himself in uncomfortable situations. They practiced different scenarios, and Daniel slowly started to feel more confident. At home, his parents made a conscious effort to spend more time with him. They played board games, watched movies, and even kicked the soccer ball around in the backyard. These moments of connection helped Daniel feel loved and supported. One weekend, Daniel's mom suggested they visit a nearby park. "Let's have a family picnic," she said. Daniel agreed, and for the first time in weeks, he felt a genuine smile spread across his face. During the picnic, Daniel's dad noticed him scribbling in a notebook. "What are you writing, son?" he asked. "It's a story," Daniel replied. "I want to write a book for kids, something that will help them know it's okay to speak up when something feels wrong." His parents exchanged proud smiles. "That's a wonderful idea, Daniel. We'll help you however we can," his dad said. Daniel worked on his story for weeks. He called it The Courageous Shield. It was about a young boy who discovered a magical shield that gave him the strength to face his fears and stand up for himself. Writing the story became a therapeutic process for Daniel, allowing him to channel his emotions into something meaningful. When the story was finished, his school organized a small event to celebrate its release. Daniel stood before an audience of classmates, teachers, and parents, reading an excerpt with a steady voice. The applause that followed was loud and heartfelt. From that day on, Daniel became a source of inspiration to others. His story was shared widely, and many children and parents thanked him for his bravery. Daniel learned that even in the darkest times, there was always hope. With the love and support of his family, teachers, and friends, he discovered the strength to heal and move forward. Life wasn't perfect, but it was better. Daniel continued to grow stronger each day, finding joy in soccer, writing, and spending time with his loved ones. And he knew that no matter what challenges he faced in the future, he had the courage to overcome them. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more impactful stories. We'd also love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, take care and stay safe.